ask you guys to go ahead and check out Insane Labs if you are in the market for purchasing some sort of an energy drink or focus drink or anything for like pre-workout, anything like that. I'd like to ask you guys to go ahead and check out Insane Labs. Use code WARLORD for 20% off your purchase. There will be a link down in the description to their website. Go ahead and check them out and buy something if you feel like it.
What's up, people of YouTube? This is Roller here, bringing you guys a video to my channel, finally covering Call of Duty World War II and the beta, which is officially dropped. It dropped a day early. I'm recording this on, technically it's Sunday morning, but Saturday night, and I just kind of wanted to give you guys my opinion of the beta, things that could be fixed, things that are perfect in my opinion, things that I'm looking forward to going forward, and just my overall opinion of the beta and the game based off of the beta, because obviously it's still a beta, which means nothing is set in stone and clear, which is the whole point of the beta, and hopefully this in some way can influence other people who might influence other YouTubers who could in turn influence the developers to maybe make changes if needed. So I'm going to cover the positives first. I'm going to go over all of the things that I think they've done really well, which is a much larger list than the negatives. To be completely honest, I really have to sit and think about what's a negative in this game. So first off, I would like to compare this to the fact that I think this game really feels like Black Ops 2. I've heard a lot of other people say that too. The gunplay feels a lot like Black Ops 2 to me, which means in my terms that it feels really, really well balanced. I don't feel like I'm getting into gunfights where I'm dying from the same gun all the time. I feel like I can use pretty much any gun with the exception of a few, and I can do well. I'm not too worried about if I'm going to be able to get a lot of kills or not. Like, that's something that I think they did a really, really good job on. And I hope that that stays the way it is going into the actual release of the game, because that's something that's really important. Because if you get games like, for example, Call of Duty Ghosts, where it seemed like there was 2 to 3 guns that were usable and nothing else, or Advanced Warfare, where it was the same thing. There was 2 to 3 guns that were, you know, top tier and nothing else could be usable. That causes a lot of issues within the community, within what you see in the lobbies and what's balanced and what's not. So in terms of guns and what you have to use, there's other things that are positives too, such as pistols and lethals. So for a long time, I think you could probably go back into my videos and find this somewhere, I stated that I want Call of Duty to push the necessity of pistols again, because I felt like with the Pick-10 system, which I did like the Pick-10 system a lot, actually, but with the Pick-10 system, it kind of felt like you were at a disadvantage if you chose to use a pistol over more perks or more attachments on your primary weapon. And that kind of sucks, because I like the concept of having a secondary. I like the concept of being able to switch to that gun in the heat of the moment when I really, really need it. And I couldn't really do that with Black Ops 2 all the way up to now. So I'm happy that they implemented a system where you have to use a lethal and a tactical, lethal or a tactical, and secondaries, pistols, whether it's a bazooka or an actual handgun like the 1911. I'm really happy about that. Another thing that I'm happy about is, like I said, the balancing. I think the SMGs are perfect. Now, some people are going to say that they think that the SMGs need to be nerfed, but I think that the assault rifles just need a little bit more love. Now, personally, I think that the STG-44 is good. I think that it doesn't really need much to be done to it. It's pretty much a laser beam. I found situations where I felt like I should be getting kills with it, and I was getting kind of outgunned by SMGs at longer ranges, and that's something that shouldn't happen, but I don't think that's necessarily bad on the SMG side as much as it is on the assault rifle side. I feel like there should be a little bit more firepower to it at those ranges. But I have another video coming out in the next few days kind of talking about a class with the STG-44 that is just absolutely ridiculously good. So I'm not going to talk too much about that right now, but I do feel like the assault rifles do need a little bit of love. They need a little bit more attention, and they just need to be buffed just a tiny bit, because the first one that you unlock is not good by any means. I don't think that's a very good assault rifle. I couldn't use it at all. The M1 Garand, I feel like I'm getting more 3-shot kills with it than I should be. I feel like it should be pretty much like the Shiva from Black Ops 3. A 2-shot kill from a lot of different distances or from a very long distance, you should still be able to get a 2-shot kill. The only thing I could say is if they want to keep it a 3-shot kill at the distances where it's getting 3-shot kills, is I would hope that they would decrease the recoil a little bit, because sometimes the recoil with the M1 Garand is kind of obnoxious even with a grip. But that's just my personal opinion. The next thing I'm going to talk about that's a positive is the maps. I feel like they've done a really good job with the maps. I don't have really any complaints. My least favorite is probably the either Point du Hoc or the forest map, Ardennes Forest or whatever it's called. Those two maps are probably my least favorite. I kind of switch back and forth based on how well I'm doing. It's just sometimes I can't really get the real handle of these maps, and I think that more times than not I'm struggling on Point du Hoc than I am Ardennes Forest, because I'm more of an AR player, but in this game I feel like I'm kind of being pushed towards the SMGs, which isn't all that bad because I'm enjoying it. War mode, which is what you guys are seeing me play on screen right now. I absolutely love this game mode. I'm excited to see what new maps are going to have in war mode. I'm excited to see, you know, maybe there's different things you have to escort, completely different objectives in general. I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope that this is something that they continue to improve on throughout the life cycle of the game. You know, maybe DLCs will change from just being 4 regular maps and a zombies map to being 4 regular maps, a zombies map, and a war map. That would be absolutely incredible. I really hope that happens, because that would, you know, make the season pass all that much more valuable in my personal opinion. Obviously you can get that stuff without the season pass, but it just makes it more useful in a sense. The time to kill also I think is perfect. It might just be a tad bit too slow, but I would not mind if they just left it how it is. Once again, reminds me a lot of Black Ops 2, very similar. The gunfights I'm getting into feel almost identical. I like how I can get shot and I can turn around and I can just annihilate somebody, and vice versa. You know, if my aim is off and I'm hitting somebody with shots but I'm missing a couple in between and they turn on me and they kill me, you know, it feels right, it feels fair. I'd rather have it that way than it be, you know, sitting on head glitches or, you know, flying around off walls and whoever sees who first is going to win the gunfight. Because I feel like gun skill is more important, and whoever has better accuracy should be rewarded properly, and this game's doing a good job of that, I feel like. So if they kept it the way it is, I would not complain. Attachments are really good. I feel like they've done a pretty good job of making sure the attachments feel authentic. I just hope that there's a few more attachments. I've done my own research, and I know this is a little far-fetched, but for sniper rifles, they did have a thermal sight in World War II. It was a weird thermal sight, but I hope that they have something like that in there. You know, some more odds and ends, some little things. I would be really happy about that if they could just somehow find a way to implement those things into the game. I think that would make it just all that much better. The colors, the visuals, all that overall for the maps, I think, and the guns themselves, the characters, I think they look absolutely beautiful, and this is just a beta. I was kind of worried that the color scheme for Call of Duty World War II is going to be really dull and dark and brown and just gritty and dirty because it's World War II, but I'm glad that they were able to make it so that way it does have nice colors and it does pop. It doesn't feel like I'm playing in a graveyard 24/7. Like, that was some problem that past Call of Duties have had. Like Black Ops 1, I've noticed World at War looks pretty grim. The original COD 4 looks pretty grim. And I was worried about that with this game, and I'm glad it's not like that. The sounds in the game itself, the gun sounds, I think are phenomenal. Probably some of the best gun sounds we've had in a Call of Duty to this point, and I think that's a really good thing, and I am glad that they actually care about the gun sounds, because it kind of feels like in prior Call of Duties, or at least the most recent ones, they're just kind of like, you know, it's a future game, so let's just throw some weird sounds in there that sound like guns and we'll call it good. Where with this, it really does sound like bass and deep shooting, damaging guns, and I think that's important when it comes to pretty much any video game, especially Call of Duty. The sniping in this game, I think, is fantastic, and this comes from someone who does not like to snipe. This comes from someone who doesn't like it when I get quickscoped, and I haven't had that happen maybe more than just a few times in this beta so far. Granted, people probably don't have the hang of it very well yet, but I think that it's rewarding when you get kills with the sniper rifle, and I feel like when I'm playing war mode, I can actually sit down and be like, you know what, I want to snipe. I want to try and get kills with a sniper rifle, and it feels like you're not hurting your team, and it feels like you are beneficial, and it's rewarding to you as a player and experience and stuff like that. And, you know, it also helped towards camos and stuff, so I like the way it is, and I hope they keep it just like it is, and they don't try to, I don't know, nerf it or make it incredibly hard or something along those lines. The spawns is another thing that I think they did a good job on. There's been a couple times where I've had some hairy spawns, but I understand it's a beta. Some of it's connection related, and spawns are never going to be 100% perfect. So that's the last thing I really need to touch on when it comes to the positives, is that I think that they did a really, really good job with the spawns on the maps. Like, I don't feel like I'm ever spawning right into like a trap, basically. Now, the negatives for this beta or game or whatever, however you want to phrase it, is the divisions, I think, need a little bit of tweaking. I do like the concept. I really do. I think it's nice to add something other than just straight up create a class. But what I don't like is the restriction of, if I want to have Flak Jacket and I want to be able to have Ghost, I can't do that. Now, I know that that's probably not something that's usually been in a class together. Usually those are in the same area, but I can compare it to something else. I want to be able to have the ability to have 3 attachments and have Ghost. That's something that I don't like. I don't like that I can't do that, and I feel like that kind of holds me back from being able to play the way I like to play, which is something that Call of Duty needs to steer away from, because I just went through 3 years of restricting the way that certain people can play the game. So I feel like it's in their best interest if they don't make this division set up too restrictive. That leads me into another thing, the basic training perks, if you will, or whatever you want to call them. I feel like those need a lot of work too, because as of right now, the only one that I think is really that useful is Lookout, which makes your minimap, bigger. You can see more on your minimap, and that's the only one that I think is really, it's almost a necessity to run that. It's a crutch perk in a sense, and I feel like all the other ones just don't compete. Like, there's nothing that I see in there and I'm like, oh yeah, I need to use that, or oh yeah, that's going to be really useful. And maybe that's what they're going for, but if that's the case, then I think they need to change the Lookout perk or basic training, whatever you want to call it, so that way it fits into that category a little bit better, so it doesn't feel like such a crutch perk or a crutch basic training, because as of right now it definitely is. And then, like I said before, the assault rifles do need a little bit more love. I feel like they need just a slight buff basically across the board, whether it's with recoil reduction, or in some cases increased recoil, or the damage needs just a little bit buff, or the range needs a little bit of a buff. That's pretty much where I'm sitting with this beta. The last thing that I want to, not really complain about, but something that I want to throw out there that I really want to see return to Call of Duty, and I've been hearing it more and more over the past 6, 7, 8 months, is I would absolutely love to see the bright gold and yellow text come back from, like, when you get a kill, and it's so satisfying. I know that they have a hint of that in this game with, you get 2 or 3 kills in a row and it adds up at the bottom and it's in yellow, but it's just not the same, and I want it to be centered around my gun in the middle of my screen, not off to the bottom, because that's just, I don't know, it just doesn't feel as rewarding to get those kills. I want the yellow text back, and I want it to be in the middle of my screen, maybe even be a little bit bigger than what it is, and I think it would be perfect. Last little thing, actually, that I also noticed while playing is the headshot sound is atrocious. I really like the satisfying sound of getting a headshot, and you hear like the skull crushing, or you hear like the ting of the helmet, or whatever it used to be in the past few Call of Duties. Those have been really, really rewarding sounds, and I hope that this isn't the permanent sound effect for getting headshots, because if it is, then that's kind of crappy. One last thing that I noticed that I forgot to talk about, actually, was the fact that I didn't mention score streaks. So score streaks in this game are a little weak, and I feel like they need a buff, but for the most part they work well. They're not too overpowered, they're not too they're hard to get, so the scores should be dropped a little bit. But that's basically it. Just a little bit of a buff, maybe drop the scores a little bit, and we should all be good. Now, that's all I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll have more Call of Duty World War II videos basically coming out between now and the time the game launches. As much content as I can possibly make and come up with, and deuces.